Good evening, thrill seekers and commentators. This is Chris Michaels, and it is the Chris Michaels Show. Having a lot of technical difficulties tonight. Not really good on the audio. The camera wouldn't focus on me. The hair is disheveled. And now we've got more issues. Right on the precipice of everything that we always talk about: current events, politics, sometimes metaphysics. We've got Greg and we've got two interview nights coming up this Thursday, next Thursday. So, also, by the way, if anybody cannot hear the audio very well, do not be afraid to comment and say, hey, numbnuts, we can't hear you very well. So, what's going on with this? I'll be more than happy to try and oblige. But as we move into this day, we are on the cusp of a massive supermoon, right? It is going to be happening tomorrow, November 5th. So be aware for that. I mean, when you start to see these kinds of astrological events like full moons and all this stuff, generally that is a harbinger of some kind of energy that's going to come into play. A lot of politicians, including Donald Trump, tend to do their policy maneuvers and new initiatives based upon those astrological events. So watch out for anything like that. We have to look into the symbolism of what a blood moon, I think it's a blood moon, is tomorrow, especially since it is the largest one of the year of 2025. But then we also have the unfortunate, quote unquote, event that involves Mr. Dick Cheney. I don't know if many of you were alive when I was. I mean, I was just a gilded youth entering college when Dick Cheney, former vice president, was working under Bush II. And I had no liking towards this war criminal, this bloodthirsty idiot. He was one of the most idiotic people out there. He died at the age of 84. And as far as I'm concerned, that's far too late. He died due to complications of pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. And the statement from his estate said that the 46th vice president of the U.S. died last night on 11/3/25. He was 84, beloved wife, 61 years. Lynn has daughters, Liz and Mary, that follow him up, and other family members were with him when he passed. The former VP died due to complications. For decades, Dick Cheney served our nation, including as White House Chief of Staff, Wyoming Congressman, Secretary of Defense, and Vice President of the United States. Dick Cheney was a great and good man who taught his children and grandchildren to love our country. All right, enough. We all know the type of person that Dick Cheney was, and he was a solid gold-plated asshole. Everybody remembers when he was out in the field. He was hunting. We don't know if he was hunting for pheasant or grouse, maybe deer. We don't know. But he was out there and he was hunting, and he accidentally shoots someone from his hunting party in the face with a shotgun. And he says, oh, it's just an accident. I don't know how it happened. If you're holding firearms and you're supposed to be some Republican president from the state of Wyoming, then using firearms should be second nature at that point. Because if you're out in the bush, you need to have full control over your weapons. So for this guy to claim that, oh, it was just a shooting accident, I don't know how it happened. No. I never bought that story. I never will buy that story. I don't care who's selling it. What this seems like to me is that the hunting party was all coked up and boozed up, and they were not acting in appropriate ways. They were being their usual fraternal house selves. And a lot of that kind of activity was running rampant during Bush II's administration. Bonus points for anybody that does any kind of research into the Bannon canon. Now, I don't mean Steve Bannon. I mean Bannon under the Bush II administration, part of the press corps. He was always signed in. He was never given official press passes to ask questions of the Trump administration. Look into his background. I'll give you a hint. It involves adult, homosexual, pornographic material. And Mr. Bush said that he had an intimate relationship with him. So, food for thought for you. Bonus points if you know who the band cannon is. Let's see what. Oh, Greg Bolden chiming in. Audio sounds good. Lighting and camera looks sharper than usual. New camera. No, Greg, not a new camera. I just found something called a light, and I decided to turn it on. And that's probably the reason why we can see my beautiful features. And it seems to have brushed away the years. No crow's feet, no wrinkle. Oh, I do have wrinkles in the forehead if I do decide to raise my eyebrows. But the light does help at my advanced years, looking better and better. So Kamala Harris, part of the brain trust on the Democrat side, decided to chime in with Dick Cheney's passing. She said, I am saddened to learn of the passing of former VP Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was a devoted public servant from the halls of Congress to many positions of leadership in multiple presidential administrations. His passing remarks the loss of a figure who, with a strong sense of dedication, gave so much life to the country he loved. Doug and I are keeping Lynn, their daughters Liz and Mary, and the entire Cheney family in our thoughts during the difficult time. Now, if you notice something, I've decided to do a Liza Minnelli type drunken impersonation of Kamala Harris because that's what I think she is. Usually I would, whenever I see her, I always assume that the babe is on some kind of alcoholic binger or God knows what else. So the reason why Kamala Harris is suddenly coming out in defense of Dick Cheney, not even defense of Dick Cheney, but just niceties for Dick Cheney. I mean, this bloodthirsty war criminal. I mean, this guy was responsible for the project of the new American century, or at least partially responsible for the project for the new American century. This guy was eyeball deep in the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq and making sure that Halliburton got all of these cost-plus contracts wherever they went. If you don't know what a cost-plus contract is, it's essentially these corporations that go somewhere, these contractors that go somewhere, if something is destroyed, they get reimbursed not only for the destroyed material, but the replacement material. So if it costs $50,000 for a truck and it somehow gets destroyed, the government reimburses them $100,000, 50 for the lost truck, 50 for the new truck. Then you have to look into what they call burn pits, where if a truck got a flat tire, there were plenty of exposés on this too. A truck would get a flat tire, they would push the truck into a pit and then set it on fire to say that it was a loss so that they can make more money, right? And it's a write-off if it's a loss too, so the corporation doesn't lose any cash either. They only have more to gain. But anyway, going back to Kamala Harris, the reason why she's coming out with this stuff is because the Democrat Party knows that it is full of losers. They've got nobody to run. So where are they looking? They're looking over hill and dale. Who do we see over here on the West Coast? We see Gavin Newsom. Yes, when he's not busy combing his hair and acting like a slithering snake beneath a damp log. We've got him over there. And then we've got, who do we have on the East Coast? Well, I'm looking. Oh, AOC. She is going to be the new leader of the Democrat Party on the East Coast. Yes, Orozco Cortez. She's going to lead the way with her socialist-like mindset from her penthouse in New York City, living above a Whole Foods. No, my friends. She is, Kamala Harris, is potentially looking in the direction of Miss Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, she was one of these bottom dwellers on the January 6th committee. She was one of these individuals that weren't necessarily playing by the rules, putting her fat thumbs on the scale to make sure Trump looks worse than ever. And we are finding out that she was communicating with various other agencies and media groups, possibly involved with leaking information that she should not have been leaking, and making sure that the narrative was always negative when it came to Donald Trump. So Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, somehow getting a replastering effort thanks to the Democrat Party. Now, this is what could possibly happen. I don't really see Liz Cheney going over to the Democrat Party. I don't see her registering as a Democrat, right? She is one of the holdover boomer Republicans. So what would probably happen is, if anything, she gets up there, she somehow gets the nomination. The Democrats would then push somebody on the Democrat side that doesn't really stand a chance against Liz Cheney, which is essentially tacit approval from the Democrat Party leadership that we'll let you win with Liz Cheney. But we know that you're going to play ball with us behind closed doors, and you're really, for all intents and purposes, Miss Cheney, a Democrat with an R after her name. So watch out for more of this kind of influence peddling from the Democrat side. Kamala Harris, one of the worst human beings on the planet, and she's out there playing nice with the Cheney family. I mean, you could also say, well, it's a tight-knit group in the White House. The president is a certain class of individual in the U.S. The VP is a certain class of individual. They've got different perspectives. They've gone through different experiences. So it's a tight-knit club. That's why you see people like Carter, Clinton, Obama, and all them all palsy-wowsy and, rubbing elbows together in these pictures. But mark my words, if Kamala Harris had any set of ovaries to speak about, she would have said something icky like I just did about Dick Cheney. Moving along to Nigeria, speaking ill of individuals on the neocon scale. Yes, that's right. This dour cow, Victoria Nuland, decides to rear her ugly head and throw her enormous weight around. Now, we haven't seen this woman since, 4 years ago? I mean, this woman was responsible, essentially, for overthrowing the Ukraine back in 2014, where the leaked emails came out, quote unquote, F the EU, when it came to figuring out who should lead the Ukraine and whether or not Ukraine should be overthrown to begin with. So she was drummed out of existence, thankfully, to Donald Trump. But here she is again in Nigeria, meeting with the chief of staff to the Nigerian president and the national security advisor. I am not going to try to pronounce those names, but the photo will do us well. So here she is, dual citizen of the United States. And why would this woman be over there in all places? Well, we've heard a lot of things about how Christians are being killed by, I believe, radicalized Muslims. Well, we do know that a lot of Christians in Nigeria are being killed. Well, what else do we know about Nigeria? I know. They're playing all cozy-like with China and BRICS. BRICS being Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This is the group of nations that want to create that multipolar world to act as a counterbalance to whatever the West is trying to do with their financials, stemming from the gnomes of Zurich and Basel and all the rest. But what else do we see in Nigeria? I'm pretty sure that rabid Victoria Nuland doesn't give a damn about any Christians. If she did, why didn't she say anything against Israel when Israel was destroying Christian relics and churches all throughout the Middle East and including Gaza? Not a peep, nary a word. But there is something else going on here. Nigeria is heavily influenced by China financially. China has gone in through Africa. They are probably the most influential nation in Africa outside of Africa. What do? They basically exchange natural resources to increase the flow of infrastructure and to create infrastructure throughout these African nations. So there is an exchange there. Nigeria also has, if my sources are correct, a lot of natural resources, including oil. So here we go again. We've got Victoria Nuland lurking about at low tide in a marsh somewhere. She comes creeping out through the swamp gas and poof, she's in Africa. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trump takes the message and says, we're going to go after Africa, or at least not Africa, I should say, but Nigeria. We're going to do precision strikes, and we're going to make sure that Christians are defended. No, 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 no. This has everything to do with another attempt to break apart BRICS and to also limit the influence of China in Africa and elsewhere in the world, because they just can't do it. They just cannot abide by the fact that these countries like China, Brazil, Russia, and all the rest, that they could dare to pose any kind of threat to the Western financial system. And so they need to homogenize that message, right? They need to make sure that everybody is on board. If you're not, we're going to bully you into acquiescence, which is essentially what we're seeing now on X, right? I mean, isn't this crazy? We see all of this algorithm nonsense on X. Why are we enduring this nonsense? Well, it turns out, and I did ask a few questions from Grok, essentially. Why is this happening here? What are we talking about? And Grok was kind enough to answer, because there have been times where I've asked Grok questions in a public forum and it just doesn't respond, just doesn't answer, because it doesn't want to answer, because if it did, it would probably have egg on its face. So Grok, I asked a question about this account, the official 1984, which I believe used to have a blue check mark but no longer does, is claiming that the ADL and Check, which is a company run by former Unit 8200 intel officials, essentially Israel, right? It has a backdoor enablement to monitor posts all across X. Now, this could potentially explain why you're seeing this awful, awful algorithm, your newsfeed just bombarding you with nonsense from idiots like Laura Loomer and every other rabid pro-Israeli, you name it, whatever it is the narrative is, right? And this could be it, right? And I asked Grok about it, and it says, no, the assessment overstates the case, checks tools, validate flagged items via API for contextual analysis using NLP. Okay. And they're claiming that they're trying to detect bots and basically stop fraud. And it also states that Check is an Israeli cybersecurity firm with Unit 8200 alumni, handles session tracking through authorized middleware, and so on. Now, here's the thing. Check, an Israeli intelligence or cybersecurity firm, is essentially creating social credit scores for you and everyone else on X to either allow you to have visibility or not. Right? How many times have we seen this where we're shadow banned? Like for me personally, if I post something, I maybe get less than 0.5% viewership of my followers. I don't have a large following, okay? I am not drawing crowds anytime soon. However, there should be some kind of higher percentage that I should be seeing from my viewers. I should at least have 5 to 10% of some kind of viewership. Now, when you post something, your view, this little category here, doesn't even mean that people that follow you actually see this. It just means that somebody somewhere on X decided to scroll through this area and this particular post popped up in their feed. It could be somebody I don't even know, somebody that doesn't even follow me, but here it is. So I asked the question, is there content, I obviously distracted when I was writing this query, run by an Israeli group? Isn't this a conflict of interest in countries like the U.S., which has freedom of speech? Wouldn't this imply that Czech could recommend shadow bans? And of course, X backpedals and defends, or Grok backpedals and defends X. No, X leverages Czech's tools for contextual analysis and content scoring, but X retains full control over moderation enforcement. Okay, let us travel back to the COVID era. How many times did we hear that, oh, Little Fauci, he didn't tell anybody to do a thing. It was all left up to the states. Little Fauci was just coming out and saying things. His recommendations weren't enforceable. It was up to the state to enforce any kind of true COVID policy. Same kind of BS that Grok just gave us here. Check technically doesn't have any influence over X. But mark my words, after Mr. Musk decided to go over to the Wailing Wall, I'm pretty sure Israel's influence was felt with Mr. Musk. And then it continues, no evidence shows that check dictating shadow bans. X has phased out hidden restrictions in favor of transparent labels. Okay. So they also reference something called content scoring, and it uses an AI-driven metric. Oh, yes, AI-driven metric. And it uses something called the Online Hate Index, which coordinates with check. Oh. Now, where do we know that the Online Hate Index, where have we heard that from? Oh, yes, I remember. It's the Anti-Defamation League's version and scoring system of what online hate is. So the ADL is dictating what is considered to be hateful posts or negative posts. And the Israeli intelligence firm Check, or the cybersecurity firm Check, is the one that is making recommendations and watching over every post on X and saying, oh boy, Chris Michaels said something naughty. Pat Buchanan, if he was on X, I wish he was, said something icky. We can't have his visibility. We shouldn't have this. This gets even worse. Because if we go back to the original post that I referenced, Check's tools validate flagged items via API calls for contextual analysis using NLP. What is NLP? It is neuro-linguistic programming. Almost every single CEO and politician goes through a course on neuro-linguistic programming. It is basically a way to convey their messages to you subconsciously by using certain tones, certain body language, certain words. It is a way for them to subliminally insert their agenda into your head without you knowing about it. Even if what you post isn't overtly icky or critical of Israeli policy, the NLP still picks it up. It still goes to check. Check still references the ADL-backed online hate index. And then it gives you a social credit score as to whether or not your post should be viewed by the average user on X. But the algorithm is fine. There's no censorship on X. Anybody can post anything. Well, okay, technically true. Yes, you can. But you're paying for the privilege to have your viewership and reach obliterated by, for all intents and purposes, a group like the ADL, which wants to censor freedom of speech, run by a company that is straight out of Israel that wants to squash any kind of freedom of speech that is critical of Israel or Netanyahu or dares to question any narrative that comes out of Netanyahu's fat ass. How does this work for Elon Musk? He must be getting paid oodles of cash in order to allow some company like Check to run the joint. So I did a little experiment, and it was very sad. Some of you picked it up, some of you didn't. And I asked Grok to use a post. I wanted to respond to a post. And I wanted it to create a response that is seemingly going to give you a positive score that uses the correct neurolinguistic programming that wouldn't get obliterated in its reach. And the post that came up was really, really sad. And I just put it out there verbatim. And sure enough, when the average post that I come out with is usually 20 viewers, this post got 228 views. So something is there. There is something to say about this. And I will show you exactly what I did. It's really embarrassing. So this is the original post by Global Updates. Breaking: Israelis say they will never visit New York City if Mamdani wins and becomes mayor. Good. Good. Because we're still waiting for Alexandrovich, the one that tried to meet with a child out in Nevada, part of Netanyahu's inner circle in the government, to come to the United States to face justice for trying to meet with a child. So if they don't come here, no love lost, I'm sorry to say. So I asked Grok, what can we do? What could we post about this that is positive, that gives us a positive score, that would allow an increased amount of views based upon my relative infinitesimal amount of views? And this is the most awful thing, but here it is. Wow. What an interesting twist in the New York City mayoral race. I love how diverse opinions are sparking such lively discussions. Mandani's vision for affordable and safety sounds inspiring. Let's keep the conversation positive and see how this unites us as a city. What do you all think about his plans? That's awful. I would never post something like that because it sounds so idiotic. It sounds like I should be on a top 40 radio station reading a local spot for some car dealer or a gas station that just opened. But this is actually what gets a positive response. This almost has nothing to do, and it also uses hashtags, by the way, something that Elon Musk said is antiquated and you should never use hashtags. So maybe the increased visibility has to do with the hashtags. But here's the thing. They want you completely subservient. They want your brains to be mush. They don't want critical thinking. They're essentially trying to create an ABC or a CBS. Now, of course, your feed can be all gloom and doom, not unlike what mine is. But the point is this: if you don't have a lot of visibility, then this is the angle that they are trying to push. They want you to be posting nonsense. They want the lowest common denominator to engage with the most amount of posts. And it's really sad that this is where we're at with all of this, especially when you find out that an Israeli firm that is run by former Israeli intelligence from Unit 8200 is running the whole show and dictating whether or not you get a positive social credit score on this crap. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's just very, very sad, which leads us down the road of the New York City mayoral elections. We've got Mamdani, who, by the way, I'm not sure if you saw this video. I don't have it in front of me, but Mamdani can speak with multiple accents, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean he speaks multiple languages, which we have to assume he does, but he speaks with multiple accents. In some cases, it is a Farsi accent. In some cases, it's an English accent, and I don't mean American. In other cases, it appears to be a Hindi accent. So why is this guy speaking in different accents in front of different reporters or people asking him questions? I mean, this reminds me of what Hillary Clinton did when she was running for president, and she was in front of a crowd, and I ain't in no ways tired. I mean, she might as well just come out there, sing Mammy, and say, I know nothing about birthing no babies. I mean, it's ridiculous. It was the most embarrassing moment in any political campaign I've seen in recent years coming from that other dour cow, Hillary Clinton. But anyway, Mr. Mamdani, socialist, wants to enable people to come in and get free bus rides across New York City. Yes, that's right. He wants everybody to ride the buses for free. I can only imagine the disaster that would happen with that. Could you imagine all of the druggies that would just be tweaking all over the bus seats, just barging in? God knows what would happen, what kind of assaults would occur, and nothing would happen because you've essentially got a get out of jail free card if you do anything nasty in New York, if you assault somebody or commit any kind of crime. So naturally, any of those people would be getting off scot free. And then he wants to create price controls, right? He wants to make sure that there are grocery stores under the thumb of New York City so that nobody is going to be taken advantage of when it comes to groceries and they can afford things. But then there was also this, and the libs of TikTok decided to allow us to see this. I don't remember hearing this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's true. Mamdani campaign staffer says that he will provide free gender-affirming care in New York City for anyone who wants and will even fly people in to receive it. Mamdani also pledged to spend $65 million on trans treatments, including for kids. Reading between the lines, we can now see that Mr. Mamdani is for population control and would like a sterilized population in New York City. And if you're going down the same road that a lot of other people go down, where you're saying that trans individuals could potentially have some kind of mental illness that needs psychiatric treatment, then what you're doing is not unlike what Hitler did, stealing his idea from Cold Spring Harbor in New York, that we shouldn't allow people with mental disabilities to have sex and children. So by all means, Mr. Mamdani, if you want to make this kind of jump and allow people that claim to be trans to essentially sterilize themselves with the anti-androgens and the gender-affirming care by chopping off various reproductive organs, by all means, you are free to do so. But what is also striking about this video is that we still have maskers here in New York City. Well, I'm not in New York City, but we still have maskers in New York City. Thank goodness for that. At least we know who to avoid in public if we ever see them with these idiotic masks. Still going strong here in 2025. But then you also have this idea that Mr. Mamdani is going to do what? He also claims that he's going to create affordable housing. Really? Is he really going to do this? Because I find that hard to believe. I would sooner believe that Mr. Mamdani is going to allow smart cities to be developed, especially since you have the former mayor of New York City, the head of C40.org, which tries to implement smart cities and Green New Deal style policies across the United States. They have inserted themselves into every single city across the, well, not every single city, but a lot of cities in the United States, including other cities across the globe. But then JL Partners did a poll for the Daily Mail and said that New York City could face a historic population loss if Mr. Mamdani becomes mayor. 9% of residents would definitely leave, which is about 765,000 people, while another 25% would consider going. Opponents of Mamdani describe a future city as a disaster, hell, chaos, destroyed, and an S-hole. His supporters instead predict it would be affordable, improved, hopeful, and changed. The poll found 7% of those earning at least $250K a year would move away, since the wealthiest 1% fund roughly half of New York City's income tax revenue. Even a fraction leaving would crater the city's finances. Good. Good. This city, to quote Jack Nicholson, old-time actor, needs an enema. We need to clear out New York City, and if it has us staring off of the cliff that New York City needs to be trashed like the Bronx was back in the 1970s. I mean, that place looked like a war zone. In order to get any real change, then by all means, we have to do so. We have to do so. And so, who do we have running against Mamdani? We've got Curtis Sliwa and his harem of ex-wives. I think he's got like 5 or 6 ex-wives. Mr. Ackman, rabid Zionist, dual citizen, decided to chime in about the New York City mayoral race. Mr. Ackman said that you cannot vote for Curtis Sliwa, and if he cared about New York City, Mr. Sliwa would drop out. And the only reason why Mr. Sliwa is still running is because he wants to make sure that his family members get paychecks by working for the campaign. And if anybody had any real scruples, they would support Cuomo, which is exactly what Donald Trump decided to do. He said that you can't come out and vote for Mamdani. You have to vote for Cuomo. Now, Curtis Sliwa, he's the Republican nominee. Why wouldn't Trump come out and say you've got to vote for the Republican nominee? Curtis Sliwa started up the Guardian Angels way back when. Those are the guys, the berets and the red sports jackets. They were out there putting themselves in harm's way to defend certain sectors of New York City, certain sections of society that were being bullied from crime and all the rest. If you ever look at the back of the Guardian Angels jacket, you'll see a lot of occult symbolism. So don't think that Mr. Sliwa is not in tune with the fraternal organizations out there. He certainly is. Curtis Sliwa beat up a couple of times. I think he was even shot or stabbed years ago. Not sure which. But he also did TV shows. And he also did, not TV shows, radio shows. He was on radio a lot. Entertaining, fairly entertaining guy. If anybody had the experience and the network to run New York City, it technically would be Curtis Sliwa. But here we are, apparently throwing our weight behind Cuomo as he's supposed to be the best guy to defeat Mamdani. Cuomo, exponentially desperate to try to get any leverage, any kind of voter out there, today said, well, I didn't even know about what was going on during COVID. I was only trusting my advisors. I was trusting the science and the data that was presented to me. And I am truly sorry for packing out nursing homes with COVID patients. Are you, Mr. Cuomo? Truly, are you? Because if I remember correctly, you didn't give a flying F about anybody in those nursing homes. Remember, those nursing homes and Cuomo's policies was how the COVID narrative was allowed to be pushed during the election of 2020. Here's an old New York Post headline. Governor Cuomo, on numbers he covered up, whether a person died in a nursing home or a hospital, who cares? They died. Well, Mr. Cuomo, I care. I'll tell you why I care. Other people that had family members that died in a nursing home, I can guarantee you that they cared as well. Now, why is this such an issue? Let us turn back the clock, because Chris Michaels was doing a lot of podcasting back then. Oh, yes, now I remember. It's all coming back to me through this hazy fog of memory. Let me tell you something. This is how Cuomo ginned up the COVID numbers. He would throw these people into nursing homes. Each nursing home has like a wing, right? I'm not sure how many healthcare workers you've got out there, but you've got a wing. I mean, it's just natural, right? You have a hospital, you've got certain wings in the hospital. So you've got a north wing, south wing, east wing, the Smith wing, whatever it is. Let's just say that you've got 10 people living in that wing. Let's also say that you've got 4 caretakers, so 4 nurses or whatever, and you've got 1 doctor. That's 15 people altogether. 10 patients, 4 nurses, 1 doctor. Right? Okay. Well, under New York's COVID policy, thanks to Cuomo. If anybody tested positive for COVID, then the whole wing was counted as testing positive for COVID. All right. It's quite a revelation, don't you think? Now, also keep in mind that the way they were testing for COVID involved PCR tests, which we later found out gave us a false positivity rate of around 97%. So that means that out of every 100 positive PCR tests, 97 of them were false positives. So whatever you see out there, as we've tested X amount of cases as positive, you could throw 97% of those positive COVID cases out the window because those PCR tests were that shitty. All right. So going back to our example of how Cuomo ginned up the numbers. One person tests positive. That wing counts as 15 positive COVID cases. They test later on in the day, maybe 2-3 times a day. Somebody still tests positive. That counts as 15 new positive COVID cases. Because everybody in the wing is considered to be a positive COVID case, even if only one person tests positive. Now, extrapolate that. How many nursing homes across New York State? How many people in a wing or each wing of a nursing home in New York State? And now you know where New York and New York City got one of the most horrendous new positive COVID case numbers in the union during the election of 2020. It was all because of this fat-nosed, fat-lipped idiot, Governor Cuomo, putting his thumbs on the scale for positive COVID cases. In other words, committing a massive amount of fraud. New York State should be sued to oblivion. And then you've got this jackass, Cuomo, coming out and saying, I'm really sorry for doing this. It wasn't my fault. I was just trusting the science. I was just trusting the data. No, Mr. Cuomo, it is your fault. It's all your fault because you were the one in charge. You were the governor. You had the ability to see through all of the discord, and you had the means and ways to allay a lot of the fears of people in New York State. And your impact was felt throughout the next 4 years due to you completely committing fraud when it comes to the new positive COVID case numbers and putting people in harm's way by packing out these nursing homes. You're a disgrace, and I hope you lose this election and you never come back into the public eye. That's going to be it for me. It's Chris Michaels Show. I'll be back next week. Interview Thursdays. I think we've got this week, next week, and later on in the month, one of our favorite guests, Dr. Joseph Farrell, will come back. We'll talk about his new book. That, of course, will be with Greg and I. So all of the Greg Bolden fans out there, don't forget to tune in. We generally do these interview shows live, which is always a fun way to do them because you never know what could happen. All right, that's it for me. It's Chris Michaels Show on the America Emboldened Network. Follow America Emboldened on Discord. Follow me and Greg. If you're on X, it is Real Greg Bolden. If you're on X, you can follow me, C. Michaels Show. And also the Chris Michaels Show on YouTube is there as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, my friends, I will see you next Tuesday.